Sup, Dad?
Welcome to This Dad Reads, a pop culture podcast on books, shows, games, and all things nerdy. What is going on, my friends? I hope everyone is doing well out there. I am back with another episode, and I have so much to catch you guys up on. In the short time since my last episode, I have been to 2 conventions. School has started for my kids. I have still been reading books. I did an author interview, so there is so much to catch up on, and I just want to jump right into it. So first of all, I want to talk about San Diego Comic-Con. This was at the end of July, and if you're following me online, I documented all of my adventures every day with a little video recap on social media. But this year I was completely free. I wasn't working the con. I didn't have any commitments. I wasn't there technically as like a content creator. I was just there to have a good time. And so I really just spent the majority of my time meeting up with friends, hanging out with people, talking to people in lines, getting, some free book giveaways, just kind of chatting with creatives and authors and going to signings. I was also invited to a tour after party one night, so my friend Joshua and I went to that, where we had just free food and drinks and got to just chat with some of the tour publishing group folks, which was super fun. This was my 3rd time being at San Diego Comic-Con, and I never take it lightly that this is something that not everybody gets to do. This is honestly a convention that since I was in junior high reading Wizard magazine that I have dreamt of going to, and so I do not take it lightly that, it's a privilege to be able to go. If you've never been before and, you're a nerd like me, I highly recommend trying to get there one of these years. This convention, though, guys, is so overwhelming. There is so much to do, both off-site and in the convention itself. If you're not really a crowd or line person like I am, you can definitely find yourself getting overwhelmed. Just trying to walk across the exhibit hall floor is sometimes incredibly frustrating because people are just like browsing and looking around and not paying attention. So I really had to just balance some like peaceful, quiet moments with the chaos of the con. But all in all, it was so amazing. I can't even say that I can think of like a favorite part. Like getting to meet Doug Chiang, who's done so much amazing work with George Lucas and Lucasfilm, was really cool. Being able to attend both of the Star Wars publishing panels that they held was super cool. Not a lot was announced, which is okay, but just being in the same room with some of those authors and creatives was just, a marked moment for sure. One huge moment for me, if you've been listening to the podcast since I've started, I spoke with George Mann a while ago, who's one of the High Republic authors, and on the show I discovered that we both have a shared passion for tabletop games. And finally this year at San Diego Comic-Con, we made a day and a time happen to play the Star Wars deck building game. After one of the publishing panels, he and actually Kevin Scott and I walked over to one of the hotel's Starbucks. I sat down, we played the game, chatted with them, and just had an amazing time. George and Kevin are both such cool just guys and friends, and it was so just casual. It was like a regular game day. It was a regular game night. We talked about my upcoming convention at Gen Con, which I will talk about in a second, but I think George liked the game. I barely ended up winning, but I just love introducing people to games, especially in IPs that are just so beloved, and especially for a game that I love so much. And surprisingly enough, I didn't spend that much money at the con itself. I realized at my first convention that the exclusives are near impossible to do unless you are dedicating all of your time and energy to getting those things. I find it actually kind of a waste of time. So a lot of the stuff I ended up bringing home, which was a lot. I barely fit everything in the suitcases and luggage that I brought. Most of it was free, and like Comic-Con, you can spend your whole time there just doing freebies and giveaways. It remains to be seen if I will be at San Diego Comic-Con again next year. Will have major FOMO if I don't end up going, but I feel like once I'm there, I just can't miss going another year. But I want to see how like everything goes with other conventions this year. So I had an amazing time. If you saw me there, thank you for hanging out. I want a special shout out to Justin, Joshua, Nathaniel, Jay, Kenny, and everyone else who I interacted with and hung out with. Thank you guys for making my San Diego Comic-Con 2025 so memorable. Literally the next weekend, I attended Gen Con, which is a tabletop convention in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I got home on like a midday Sunday from Comic-Con, and I literally had a 5:45 a.m. flight the following Wednesday. So I had 2 full days in between, which was full on family work, and then I jetted off once again. So thank you to my amazing wife for letting me do all this. It was partly my birthday present that I think she might have been regretting after it all happened. But it was my first time attending Gen Con, and being such a huge tabletop game fan, it is definitely one I've wanted to go to for a while. This was the second year that I actually got a media badge to go, but the first year I was actually able to attend. And I did not know what to expect. Obviously, I'm familiar with conventions, but never been to Gen Con before, and I'd heard rumblings like, oh, it's kind of crazy, get ready for it. But I'm happy to report that it was so doable after coming from San Diego Comic-Con. Like, obviously, don't get me wrong, Gen Con is huge and very popular and tons of things to do and tons of attendees. I believe they've completely sold out, which is, I think, well over 70,000 people, but it is nothing compared to San Diego Comic-Con. So I was thankful for that. I have to say, too, I think Gen Con might be nerdier than San Diego Comic-Con. Tabletop gamers are just a special kind of breed of nerd, and one that I love so much, but definitely different vibes there. Not as broad, not as many, things for people to nerd out on. It's niche, but then there's niches in niches at this convention. And the cool thing about it is that so many people are there just to play games. Like, you could spend your entire day roaming the exhibit hall floor, buying stuff, which is definitely something so fun to do. But there is a whole section of the convention hall just dedicated to game demos. So a whole bunch of publishers set up tables where you pay a very small ticket fee, or it's sometimes free, like $2 to $6, to sit down and you play games. You learn games for like anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to 2.5 hours, depending on how intense the games are. So I had bought a couple tickets to play some games, so I did that. Some of them are also played to purchase, so like you basically get to play the game and take it home with you. Because I was press for this convention, my calendar was a lot more booked than San Diego Comic-Con was, but it was all fun stuff. It was all just kind of meeting up with, marketing people or owners of companies. Like, I got to meet the Fanroll CEO, who gave us like a quick tour of their table. I met so many cool companies and designers and artists who just wanted to spread the love about their games, and I walked away with a ton of fun games that I am slowly trickling out and making content for and posting about those on my social media channels. And it was just so much fun, and I wasn't able to hang out with as many friends at this convention, but I do have to give a special shout out to Star Wars book community member Spencer, who you may also know as Wookiee Reads, who let me know he was actually at the con. We were able to meet up a couple times. He gave me some of his duplicate High Republic character Star Wars Unlimited cards. We had dinner one night. Spencer, thank you so much for hanging out and for being a friend. It was so much fun being able to hang out with you. One really cool thing that I haven't talked about much yet on social media was I met up with a game designer named Trey, who works for the Gambit Foundry. He has a brand new deck building game called Riftblade coming out to Kickstarter in September, and I booked a time to chat with him, and I played a little demo of his game. And he actually sent me home with the demo of the game too. So this is really cool. It's actually my first pre-release game that I've ever been able to own and, cover. So I'm really excited to dive into that game soon and help make a video. And so you might be seeing my video on their Kickstarter. So this is one, if you've heard me talk about shows on the show before, you know that I love deck builders. I've said it before. Like I said, the Star Wars deck building game. I love the Mistborn deck building game. It's just a really fun format that is super replayable and really easy to teach once you kind of know the basics of what those types of games are. So Riftblade is coming soon. I'm really stoked to create one of my first long form content videos and share that out there and share this game with everyone out there. I think it's really fun, and if you especially love like fantasy elements, spellcasting games, it's going to be a good one. I just can't thank all of the people I met up with enough for the amazing experience at Gen Con this year. I would love to go back again someday. Again, it's kind of hard for me to get to. It's, 3 hours. it's a 3-hour time difference from where I live, and so it's just a little bit harder for me to get out there. So I don't know when I will go back one day. I have some dreams of taking like a family trip with my kids and some of my in-laws, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So that will hopefully be someday in the future. But for now, I'm just going to be so thankful that I was able to go and just had such an amazing time. And if you are a tabletop game fan, I highly recommend trying to get to Gen Con at some point. So that is the update of all the conventions that I went to this summer. These were things that I have been looking forward to literally since the beginning of the year. You know, it's that thing where I'm slightly bummed that they're over, but I'm just trying to remain thankful that they happened. Now I think it's a great time to jump into all of the books that I've been reading, the games I've been playing, and some of the shows I've been watching since my last episode. Okay, so I am going to go through this list hopefully a little bit faster than usual. I want to talk about the books that I have read and give little breakdowns on some of them. So one of the books that I read was Star Wars Sanctuary, a Bad Batch novel by Lamar Giles. And I know this book has been eagerly anticipated this entire year. We love when Star Wars books come out, but unfortunately, I don't love when I don't love a Star Wars. So I was pretty bummed that I didn't really love this book. I gave it 2 dad hats on my website as a review. I just ultimately wasn't really feeling it. A lot of people love it because it feels like a Bad Batch episode. I was honestly just kind of bored the whole time, and I didn't really understand why it needed to be written, and I just wasn't that entertained. So maybe it was just a timing thing, maybe it was just a vibe thing, but it wasn't poorly written and it wasn't not entertaining. I just wasn't vibing with it. So not terrible. I'm never gonna say don't read a book just because I didn't vibe with it. Definitely read it and give it a chance for yourself and form your own opinion. My wife and I's Michael Connelly read through continues. We read a number of his books, them being The Gods of Guilt, The Burning Room, and The Crossing. So only 3, which is still a lot, but there's been months where we've definitely done more than that. I listened to an audiobook called Hit Girls by Nora Princiotti. This was a really fun, just deep dive into late 90s, early 2000s pop and how females have really defined the eras. People like Britney Spears, Hilary Duff, Avril Lavigne, and it's Nora is a podcaster, which I didn't know, and she has a super deep passion for pop culture and pop music. And so if you are a music fan like I am, this was a really fun book, and she's a really fun narrator, and it was honestly hilarious at times. But I love how seriously she takes pop music and how much joy she just gleans from this specific era where, you know, Britney was ruling, and kind of how she changed the scene for honestly the next decade, if not decade plus. Another Star Wars book came out, which was Star Wars The Acolyte, The Crystal Crown by Tessa Gratton. I was able to read this one early and publish my review as well. And another Star Wars book that I didn't love. I don't know if it's just, maybe my head's not in the right space, but again, I just wasn't really vibing with it. I loved The Acolyte. I love Jordan Jecki. I love Tessa Gratton as an author, but I just, again, was very confused about why this book happened, and I was very confused. It started okay, and then I really enjoyed the interactions between Jord and Jecki and seeing them interact, but then it goes to this planet where it's all about this, it's a new planet, and it's all about its citizens, and it's basically like the Hunger Games mixed with Star Wars, and I just became very confused and really struggled to finish the book. I think it's going to be one of those things where maybe if I pick it up again in the future, I might enjoy it more, and it is, set in the High Republic era, but I don't know. This was just kind of a miss for me. It's one of the only Star Wars books I think ever that I've given only one dad hat to on thisdadreads.com. So again, check it out, form your own opinion, but not one that I loved. I am stoked to report that I have finished the Stormlight Archive, or at least what is published of it at this point. I finished Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This one I had read started in July and didn't finish through midway through August, and I was so determined. I didn't do multiple reads. I was really wanting to get through it, and I'm so glad that I focused and just charged my way through, because I do feel like Brandon Sanderson books, are more entertaining when you just focus on it and your attention isn't divided on anything else. Wind and Truth wrecked me. It thrilled me. It entertained me. I absolutely loved it, and it's most likely the longest single book that I've ever read. It's like 1,500 something pages. It's insane, but he is honestly just the king of high fantasy, modern high fantasy, I'm gonna say it. And I'm going to Dragonsteel Nexus in December, my third convention of this year, and I cannot wait to engage with Sanderson fans there. And I know that my Cosmere reading journey will be complete by then. I will be diving into the second Mistborn era very soon. I'm taking a slight Sanderson break so I can read some other books, but Wind and Truth was amazing. It's the 5th book of the Stormlight Archive of a planned 10-book series. So I know it's going to be a minute till we get another one, but I know we will have plenty of content from him in the meantime. He is prolific, he is nonstop, and so I cannot wait to continue to devour his books. And finally, another Star Wars book, The Art of Star Wars, The High Republic, Volume 2 by Kristen Baver. Happy to report that this was a 5-star read from me. This is the second volume of the Art of High Republic series. The first one came out some years ago now, and I love art books, first of all, so that's a huge win. And of course, I love Star Wars and the High Republic, and I love Kristen Baver's writing, and this book honestly just feels like a huge love letter and a huge hug to the community, to the authors, to the creatives behind this initiative. This book sums up all of the art and conceptual designs that went into phases 2 and 3 and just collects so much of the finished art, shows so much behind the scenes development, especially of the Nameless. She talks to Ian McKay, she talks to all of the authors, she talks to Michael Siglain. I cannot recommend this book enough if you are a High Republic fan. It really feels like the perfect end cap on this initiative, or at least this initiative so far. It's beautiful. It has amazing interior hardcover art on after you take the dust jacket off, which has the Nameless close-up. Again, can't recommend it enough. It's beautiful to look at, it's amazing to read, and it feels like Kristen took every effort to make sure that High Republic fans feel seen and loved. And there's even a picture of the first High Republic cosplay meetup that happened at Star Wars Celebration 2022, and I saw a couple of my friends in there. So it's just an amazing book. I highly recommend it. You need it on your shelf. Like I said before, coming back home from Gen Con, I had tons of games that are sitting on my, I don't have a to be played shelf, TBP, but I've played a number of those games since I've been back. One of them is Kinfire Council by Incredible Dream Studios. I put a video about this up just recently. I played it with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. It's an amazing game. It's a Euro worker placement game, and it's beautiful. The components are all amazing. I got the upgrade kit and the expansion, which I haven't actually played the expansion itself yet, but Kinfire Council is it's definitely, you know, involved, and it's not like a casual chat while you play type game. It's easily a 2 to 4 hour game. I believe at the point of this recording, it is basically distributed to all of its Kickstarter backers, and I think there might be a wait list to purchase it, but you can visit kinfirechronicles.com if you want to learn more about Kinfire Council. I also played Hello Kitty and Friends Reach for the Stars. It's a really fun and fast family game. You basically throw these little Hello Kitty figurines, and depending on how they land, you make matches to a card that you have individually, and you get points. And my daughter and wife are huge fans of Hello Kitty, and this game is super adorable, and all of the components come in this really cute Hello Kitty head-shaped zippered pouch, so that's a really fun element as well. My friends at Asmodee Games actually sent me a brand new Star Wars game called Star Wars Super Teams. This is a family-friendly title which is coming out in September, and I was able to demo it early at Gen Con, and it's kind of a mixture of like Sorry and Uno played on a board. So basically each team or individual has 2 ships that you're trying to get across this whole galaxy from one planet to the other. And the kind of twist on this game is you have to play every single card in your hand, and some of the cards may move your opponent's ships, and obviously you want to move your own ships, but your opponents are moving your ship and you're moving your opponent's ships, but you can do things to help them or hinder them. and there's bonus cards, and it's actually really fun and really easy to learn, and it's the perfect type of game that especially my wife enjoys playing. So there's some strategy involved, a little bit of luck, and it's been super fun. So I'm actually planning to do a full video review of that, so definitely keep your eyes out for that soon. Keep your eyes out for so many more. I have plans for more content of games that I picked up at Gen Con from a number of studios, and I look forward to playing them and reviewing them and talking about them in videos and on future podcast episodes. Not really much going on in terms of shows at the moment, but I am still making my way through the Ballard series, which is a Michael Connelly series on Amazon Prime. I'm loving it so far, but I'm just trying to take my time with it, and I haven't had that much time. So I did hear, though, that British Baking Show is coming back soon, so that is definitely a favorite that I will be watching every single week. Well, I think you all have heard enough from me, so I put the feelers out on social media a little while ago, and I wanted some of you to contribute some of the most recent books that you have been enjoying, because I thought it'd be best to hear from someone just beside me for once. So let's check out what some of my book friends have been reading lately.
Hey Jason, this is Harvey Hamer, author and Star Wars Insider contributor. I thought I'd share 2 recent reads from authors who have really inspired and helped me on my writing journey. The Malevolent 8 by Sebastian de Castell is a sequel to his Malevolent 7. I think the only way to really sum up that book is with the new character, Temper, a dimensionally misplaced blood-sucking kangaroo. The second book I wanted to share is Stark Holborn's For the Road. Packing that same punchy prose from Stark's Factors sequence, which I adored, it's a fantasy romance surreal acid western, inspired by Bob Dylan's One More Cup of Coffee and Gaulish mythology.
Hey Jason, Jay here. I'm still crusading through the High Republic novels and recently finished Tears of the Nameless by George Mann. I've actually found myself enjoying the YA books of the High Republic so much more than the adult. I don't know what that says about me. But I feel that the adult books have to hit much broader brushstrokes to move the plot along, and often juggle a lot more characters, leaving the YA books open for a much more concentrated story with character development, which I love. The YA books are really coming-of-age stories. Tears deals with the trauma of abandonment very effectively, which is something I struggled with in my youth, so I can see how this would benefit any teenager moving through similar challenges. Aslin Rel was creepy as hell, a little poem there for you, and I loved the increasingly unstable Nile Jedi Hunter. Lots of fun villains in this book, and I loved the parallels drawn between Reath Silas and Amadeo Azazo and their respective relationships to their masters. At one point, this book ripped my heart out of my chest, which I've come to expect from the cruel High Republic authors. Remind me why we let them do this to us again? So yeah, I'm catching up, and the end of the High Republic is in sight. Take care, for light and life, and a little heartbreak.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel. I'm a bookseller and bookstagrammer. You can find me on Instagram at RachelGuthrie2015. This month I gave myself a goal to catch up on all my arcs, specifically the ones that are coming out in September. One of those arcs was Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This is my most anticipated read for the year, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. Rebecca Ross is one of my favorite authors. I love her writing. I just love everything she's written. And I loved being able to get back into the world of Divine Rivals with this one specifically. It's the perfect prequel to the Divine Rivals duology. I cannot get over just how beautiful the writing was, how much I love the characters, Matilda and Vincent. If you loved Iris and Roman in Divine Rivals, you're going to love these two. Wild Reverence comes out on September 2nd, and I cannot wait for everyone else to read it. Another arc I really enjoyed this month was Lucas Wars by Laurent Hopman and Renaud Roche, translated by Jeremy Malol. Lucas Wars tells the story of George Lucas and how he created Star Wars in a graphic novel format. I really like this one. I'm not a big nonfiction person. I just have a hard time getting into nonfiction books most of the time. But this was so easy to jump into, and I love learning about George Lucas and how he created Star Wars. I'm surprised I don't know as much about the creation of Star Wars as I do, given how big a Star Wars fan I am. I loved the art style of this book, and there were so many funny moments. I think everyone's really going to like this one. Lucas Wars was originally published in French. This is the English translation that's coming out September 16th. Other than catching up on all the arcs, I've been wanting to get back into Star Wars Legends now that High Republic is done. I'm currently reading Rogue Planet by Greg Bear. I love the prequel, so I thought it'd be a fun place to start in one of my favorite eras. I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'm looking forward to getting back into Legends. Thanks again for having me, Jason. Happy reading, everyone.
Hi, I'm Kenny, and I recently had 2 books that I really enjoyed. The first one was Star Wars The Acolyte, The Crystal Crown by Tessa Gratton. As a fan of The Acolyte, I've been craving more stories from the time frame, and when I learned that the book was about Jecki and Yord's friendship, it jumped to the front of my TBR, and I really enjoyed it thoroughly. The last book by Tessa I read was Temptation of the Force, so this was a great change in pace. The other book that I read recently was Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King. I picked this one up after watching the most recent Superman film by James Gunn and seeing Supergirl on screen. Growing up, I had a basic knowledge of Superman through Smallville and other related movies and TV shows, but not as much when it came to Supergirl. I loved reading about a different perspective of someone who survived the destruction of Krypton and how that affects you as a person if you're old enough to remember it.
Hello, my name is Patrick W., and I am currently reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which is book one of the Stormlight Archives. It is fantastic. I have never read this series before, but I've explored other things by him, and I have to recommend this book simply on the incredible amount of detail in the world building and in the way the characters interact with each other, which allows for so much of the story to be told in an extremely intimate and character focused fashion. It also helps with some of the character archetypes that are the best I've seen in years. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. The other novel that I've recently finished is Sanctuary, a Bad Batch novel by Lamar Giles. And as an enormous Star Wars nerd, this one made me smile the entire time I was reading it. It's a very much a extra adventure with the Bad Batch characters, while also using the opportunity of a novel to explore these characters' personalities and inner turmoils in a much more intimate fashion than the show was able to achieve at times. It also really plays into some of the questions that these characters ask themselves throughout the time the show is happening, and really highlights the difficulties they're having in identifying their place in this new world. And that's so beautifully written by Mr. Giles.
Hi, folks. It's Matthew from the K and M podcast and the Tractor Reading Comics Reviews on the Star Wars Underworld podcast network. If you hear any extra sound, I'm outside at Fan Expo Canada, coming to you from the Sunday of Fan Expo Canada, my home country's, my hometown con. There we go. And I have two books rather, I want to talk about, both by Charles Soule. One is a comic book, I should say. The novel I want to talk about is Trials of the Jedi, the final novel of the High Republic publishing initiative, and I really enjoyed that. I know I'm not alone. It was Charles masterfully drew together character arcs and story arcs and plot points that we've been following for the last 3-4 years, and came to a very satisfying, frankly intimate conclusion, surprisingly intimate for an initiative and a story of that massive scale. But it was so masterfully done. You draw out the emotion for especially Avar and Elzar and Bell. Hopefully that's not too spoilery. I won't be too spoilery there. And even there's a bit of a spoiler, you get emotion for Markion Rowe at the end, which is very surprising, but really satisfying. Lastly, I want to talk about Legacy of Vader, the current comic book that he's writing, and it is wonderful. It's Kylo Ren going through just a year between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, and he's going through his grandfather's story, but from the view of Vader. You can see it's down there. Through view of grandfather's story, and it's really, what does it mean to let the past die or not, to hold on to the past, and hopefully I think part of it is going to smooth over some of the rougher, more questionable things from Rise of Skywalker. And so I'm really looking forward to continuing this series. Go check out your local comic book shop for that.
Thank you, everyone who submitted audio snippets for this episode. I hope that it inspired you to add a couple books to your TBR. Coming up after this next break, I'm talking with Alessandro K and M.K. Perker from The Lab Press all about their graphic novel Super Science. I'll be right back. Support for this episode comes from Level 8, a company that has travelers of all kinds in mind with its sleek and minimal carry-ons, luggage sets, backpacks, and accessories. I used their Roadrunner carry-on during my conventions this past summer, and not only was it nice to look at, but it was extremely functional. I was also able to pack all my clothes and gear with plenty of space to bring home my convention hauls. I particularly hate when luggage wheels are flimsy and not good quality, and level 8s are awesome and crazy durable. They served me so well in airports, at hotels, and across a variety of terrains. My kids also really loved the Roadrunner's TSA locks, which help keep the zippers as well as all my goods secure. Level 8 really has something for everyone, and they conveniently combine products into sets so you can really level up your travel game. Level 8 is hooking up This Dad Reads listeners, so visit level8cases.com and use the code level8read10 for 10% off your next purchase. That's 10% off anything Level 8 offers, and no matter what you decide to get, it's definitely going to be functional and beautiful. So again, that's level8cases.com, discount code level8read10 to save 10% off your next trip, convention, or vacation companion. Joining me today are the creatives behind the graphic novel Super Science Volume 1 from The Lab Press. It's Nick, Alessandro K and M.K. Perker. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for being here. I love having comic book graphic novel creators on. I've interviewed a number of you all, and I really think this type of media is doesn't always get the love it deserves. And I'm a huge like graphic novel comic book person. I'm a huge proponent that like it counts as reading. So here at This Dad Reads, we're all about encouraging people to engage with all types of media, and so I'm super excited to have some graphic novelists on the show today.
Arnold us to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Well, I know this is the first time we've actually met, and I have had the pleasure of reading Super Science, and some of my listeners out there might be familiar with your work or some of the other books from the lab. I just want to, me first of all, get to know you guys a little bit more, and B, also just introduce yourselves to the audiences. So if you could both just kind of let us know who you are, maybe a little bit about your background, maybe where you're from. MK just showed me the most amazing view from where he's recording at right now. So MK, why don't you get started?
Okay. I'm a comic book artist. I've started at a very early age. I was 17 years old when I started doing professional comics. Then I started doing illustrations for daily newspapers. I worked for almost every newspaper and magazine in Turkey, and Turkish editions of very famous magazines like the Esquire, Cosmopolitan, Harper's Bazaar, all of them, before I moved to New York in 2001. And then I started working for American publications, mainly the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. I did short comic stories for Washington Post. And then I started working for the DC Comics Vertigo line. And I did Cairo, the graphic novel, and the monthly series Air, which was nominated for the best new comic book series at, for Eisner's in 2010, I think, but we lost. Iron Man got the award. So yeah, since then I've been working on. The first movie was good, but still hurts. Recently we've started working on the Super Science with Nick, and we became a pretty good team, and we love the genre. And yeah, this is probably the most fun comic book series that I've been working since I've started, because there are lots of characters, lots of things going on, and it's for our for people like us, for good-looking nerds.
I love it. That's probably maybe the best sales pitch of the whole series. Nick, how about you?
Well, I do not have quite as illustrious a career. Um, I've been a filmmaker in various capacities for a little over 20 years now. I've been a producer, director, screenwriter under both Nicholas Calico and Alessandro K. So um, in doing this, I decided to make it sort of an Alessandro K uh, vehicle. Um, I did a few movies for Showtime, a movie called The Concrete Blondes, a movie called Carter in June. I've also produced a lot of documentaries, written a lot of scripts that never got made, but uh, so nothing as impressive as MK's resume. I don't even know why
Uh,
he's working with me.
Oh
oh,
goodness.
yeah.
I don't know
Of
if.
course,
Oh, go
of
ahead.
course, it's well, he's a really good filmmaker and a great photographer at the same time. So I think it's the perfect time for us to. It was a perfect time for us to match together. And yeah, now we're seeing the fertility of this collaboration.
That's awesome. And as a total aside, Nick, I did notice the title of that movie, The Concrete Blonde. I don't know. Do you have any? I'm actually wearing my Everybody Counts or Nobody Counts t-shirt, which is a Michael Connolly phrase. He's a crime fiction author. He has a book called The Concrete Blonde. Any inspiration, any connection, or is totally just random?
No, for me, it was actually kind of from the band Concrete Blonde. It's
Okay.
Concrete Blondes, but it was just one of those things where I was like, a lot of times when I'm working on a certain thing, I listen to a lot of music from a certain band
Mm.
or a couple bands. So writing that, I was really listening to the band Concrete Blonde a lot, and that started as a little bit of a working title, and then my producer was like, "Well, just make that the title. It's a great title." I'm like,
There we go. Yeah, I mean,
"Okay,
it's inspired others too. It's a very visual title, right? Like that's
yeah,
very inspiring. That's awesome. Well, sorry, that was
Sure.
just a total aside.
no, no, it's fine."
Yeah. Thank
We are definitely here today to talk about super science, but as you guys
you.
both just said, from your experience and your, histories in a couple different industries, you are not strangers to creative endeavors at all. Um, but what particularly about this title and this project really excited both of you?
Mhm.
Um,
Nick, go ahead.
well, I'll start. So this was, we were kind of putting the lab together. Uh, I had this idea. I wanted to do a sort of a comedy sci-fi, and it was right when the show Venture Brothers was wrapping up, which is one of my favorite shows, um, and which is just wall to wall sea level villains, which I just love the campiness of them. And then also it was about the time I saw a movie you might be familiar with called Spider-Man uh, Homecoming. Um, and I loved that image of these kind of like small time, semi incompetent crooks using all this wacky technology to rob a bank. And I started to think like that's a really fun image. And I started to think like sea level villains, and that's kind of how super science started to form in the back of my brain. And then originally I wanted to do it as an anthology series, and then um, I talked to a few writers. I was like, I'm not sure if I love what they're giving back to me. So I wrote chapter one, and then I said, well, I better write chapter two. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to write this whole thing. That's it. So I wrote it, and we had worked with MK on another book called Essentials, and our publisher, or editor in chief, Dagan, was like, "What if MK is the illustrator on this? Because he's so good at drawing just weird characters and weird people. All of them, like every time you look at them, you like there's a story to that weirdo." And we gave it to MK, and he was just like, "I love this. I want to be involved in this." He's, without being told any of my influences, like Venture Brothers, like Archer, he was like, "It totally feels like that," and I'm like, "All right, I think we're in."
Yeah. Yeah, it was for me. It was the same thing, and the most beautiful thing about working on super science is that I'm 52 years old. Did a lot of books, but first time in my life, it's like continuously excited me. And I know that Nick has the same excitement about our book. That during the day, send each other, he sends me a line that he comes up with, and I send him a drawing during the day. So he's in LA, I'm in Istanbul. It's like we're working in the same office, but in the different rooms. And at the same time, I'm working on other projects too, but none of them has the same excitement on me because it's the world that we grew up with. All the titles that Nick mentioned, all those great TV shows, comic books, crime thrillers, novels, and they're in the back list of our heads, and sometimes they creep up, sometimes the influences of them, and yeah, it's a very exciting process going on. It's not like only when you sit down at your desk and work on it. It's a continuous thing, and this is very valuable for me.
That's awesome. Well, and I know it's working on comics and it's such a visual medium. It's fun to talk about and engage with, and I always talk about them on my own show, but I can't show them what it looks like right now while we're talking. So if you could, maybe Nick, you can take a swing at this. Like for people who aren't familiar with what this title is, and it's relatively new, like what is kind of your just elevator pitch? Like what is this series about, and what can people who love comics, who love superheroes, who maybe like love crime, noir stuff, what can they expect from this series?
Um, well, like I said, there's a lot of sea-level villains. So if you kind of like that superhero thing, but you like a little bit campiness, you like some humor, you like some silliness, but also some real heart. I think it's something you'll enjoy. It's visually, MK and I have a lot of visual things we talked about, kind of Silver Age comics, 60s design, that kind of stuff was very influential to it. It's really a big part of our book design. Emma, who did the books, did like an amazing job, just like getting that vibe, that kind of mid-century, cute, wacky, kind of Johnny Quest-ish element to it. And I think what you're going to get is you're going to get that as sort of an overall tone. Um, you're going to get some really fun villains. You're going to get some protagonists that I think have a lot of heart to them. They're really fun to write. Um, it was really a great experience to have these protagonists that have a really good relationship. I'm really proud of the chemistry that they have with each other. Uh, you know, One of the things about Venture Brothers is that that show always comes down to fathers and sons. If you really watch that show and you think about it in a very intellectual level, it's always about fathers and sons and also brother relationships. For Super Science, I started with this idea that Jack was a guy whose mother abandoned his family. Esmeralda was someone whose husband abandoned her with three sons. And so I use that element of family and mothers and sons as kind of a basis for their relationship, which I think is in anything, whether it's a really silly, fun book like Super Science or it's something really serious, you need to have that family dynamic as what drives the characters. And I tell people all the time, like, my parents are kind of very complicated people, but they're wonderful people. And I think about them all the time. Anything normal person, your daily life, something during the course of the day will make you think of your childhood. Even if it's not like a major nostalgia, but it's like, oh, this toothbrush, yeah, I had a toothbrush that was purple when I was 6. Like that kind of stuff, that's how most people operate. And it's so like out here in the side and the periphery, but that's how a brain is built. I assume a normal person's brain or semi-normal person's brain. So creating characters that have family lives, parents, and so that was really my main thing as a writer. And then I just expanded this world like beyond the two of them. I created my heroes, my villains, my anti-heroes, um, and and I try to make it funny at the same time.
Definitely. I feel like you definitely achieved that. And MK, what tools and what inspirations did you draw from as you were kind of developing this series, and what did you utilize in
Mhm.
the creation of the art for this book?
Uh, the most fun uh, for me is to be working on many different characters. Nick writes really funny stories, so I laugh out loud when I'm reading them. And then it's once you have that kind of relationship with the character that you're about to draw, that you start laughing at laughing at the idea, and you really like it. It's a really great way to get into those characters. And because he's coming from the movie background, everything is very cinematic. And my biggest influences are coming from cinema also, and the history of cinema as well. And then because that we have a lot of characters in the story, um, it's great fun for me to make those characters act. And I'm really paying attention to the physical movements and acting styles of each character. In comics, it's a rare thing. Rarely you see a person that the leather balloon and the expression matches. I find it always really strange. Sometimes you see a character that he's yelling at someone, but the mouth doesn't move. So this happens a lot. So we're trying not to do it and make the characters act like as if it's the main panels from an animation. You don't see the other, panels that makes the animation move, but you see the main panels. And this is the most exciting part for me to make those characters act. And also the one thing that I really like about our series is that the majority of the supervillains and the heroes, most of the supervillains, they're like all street level villains. So with that, personality comes out. This is the thing that I really like about it.
That's awesome. And as you guys were answering that question, and as I recently just read the book in preparation for this interview, and it's only now hitting me right now in conversation that like I'm getting, and I mean this in the most complimentary way possible. It's like the
Thank
wackiest
you.
villains of Batman's Rogues Gallery, like to the next degree, right? Like there's a
Yeah,
guy who like farts as his his
right.
weapon. Like he takes people
Yeah.
down with gas. So guys, that's like the level of like insanity that is this book. If you love kind of out there stuff, but like you said, Nick, still pretty really well grounded in lots of humanity still, but leaning really heavy into the kookiness, like I think this book is a great one for you.
Yeah, yeah. Gas Giant was a fun character to come up with. If The story on that one is just as an experiment, I was writing kind of a spec script, not to actually be made, but when you're a screenwriter, you'll write scripts for like a TV show just to kind of show like so you can write for stuff. And I was kind of doing this idea for a funny episode of Agents of Shield where there's an inhuman whose power is that he creates these like huge farts like that. And I thought it was really funny. I kind of came up with the idea while I had a stomach bug. And so I had this like spec, and no one, I don't think anyone ever saw it. Like one person saw it and gave me notes on it. So it's just been sitting on the bottom of a pile. And when I was creating like the idea of like, okay, I need to have some superhero kind of in there. And then I'm like, oh, what about Gas Giant? So I just thought of this idea of like this like big 6'3" blue collar dude who just uses his intestines as his weapon.
As so many of us do. Oh, it's so good. It's so funny and like just the humor element is so good. And I'm literally looking at my shelf of full of like Batman toys, and I'm looking at Condiment King. Like there's just so many characters out there who you forget actually
Mhm.
exist in like canon, like DC Batman canon. And you guys are like, I feel like it's a really fun riff on that, and just takes it to that next level, like I said.
Oh yeah, like this
Like,
the '60s Batman, like King Tut. Like, what is he's
Yeah.
just you know,
Yeah.
dressed as like an Egyptian. That's like his thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, exactly.
In Batman the animated series, like one of my favorite villains who doesn't really do anything is Clock King. And
Yes, right.
like so just these ridiculous villains. And like I'm also like, what is the kind of person who becomes one of these villains?
In that, we're in that vein of like kooky out there villains, were any of them like just too wild to like really commit to and put on the page? Or I'm really curious about there's any ideas that just didn't end up in the book itself and they're still on the cutting room floor, as it were.
So well, there's two things. So one of them was I had this um I was on a road trip with Dagan, our editor, and I was just kind of pitching him ideas. And this guy in a motorcycle just kind of cuts us off and gives us the finger. And so I thought I came up with this idea of like a teleportation belt, but it doesn't always bring like all of your clothes with you.
Okay.
So sometimes you teleport, like you're fully dressed and you end up somewhere with like just your socks. So I had this idea that like Jack's like in the car, like chasing down these guys on a motorcycle, and he used the teleportation belt and he ends up like naked on the back of this guy's motorcycle. It was a fun idea. I just couldn't, I just, it was taking up a lot of real estate and I never used it. But it's still a really fun idea. And the other thing also is I was, having a little technological snafus before this started. And um, Brian, who's Burt Montague's robot assistant, I had this idea that he has like constantly having all these very like iPhone, like just kind of like not working. Like he's always asking for like passwords, you need a different password, or like just all sorts of like technological, like annoying, like every annoying thing that your iPhone or your computer does, he kind of does that, but in like in a physical body.
I mean, that's a villain origin story right there, just like an iPhone that never works, right?
Yeah, I mean that's my the origin story.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say too, this isn't really like necessarily an all ages title. This is definitely like an adult title, but I'm already seeing like my son who's 11 years old like get a kick out of so many of these things. And like I do feel you mentioned it earlier, like having memories and nostalgia. Like I feel like if you're an adult reader reading this book, it's really gonna ping a lot of probably like themes and tones. And like I went to Batman, I'm sure other people will go to different things. So like what are some of those things that you guys kind of really hold dear in terms of like nostalgic pop culture that maybe you're not drawing on for this title in particular, but what are ones that are just really close to your heart? MK, why don't you start?
yeah. Um, there are so many titles, really, but anything from the 70s, 80s, I still go back to and watch them. And we all enjoy, Nick and me, and actually the rest of the team, lab team, we're all really into all those old stuff, and because they're still motivating us in a way. I still go back to the 80s shows I watch, like Moonlighting and even Fame. So there are so many interesting characters and little details, and you can also see the influences that the today's creators got from those shows, like Knight Rider. It's an awesome idea. They come up with that idea as a very grandiose idea, but now you go back to those things, and they're so naive, uh, but still a lot of fun. And yeah, I also do really famous stuff like still Star Wars, Battleship Galactica, and all those shows. Even the Wise Guy from the 80s. You remember that show? That
Vaguely.
Yeah. So there's all those characters, like the villains in that show, uh, and many of them came back to our lives as new different titles, but you can see the source. So how those things were shaping up, especially in the 80s. I think it's a very game-changing decade, with the music too. Yeah, And the movies, of course, the, nowadays you can see a lot of TV shows based on those movies, right? Back in the day, TV shows, if they got really famous, they used to do movies based on the TV shows. Today, it's vice versa. So they still continue to influence us and motivate us. I think.
I'll give you kind of a slight different perspective on that. So uh, I'm also into cars, and almost every year I go to Monterey Car Week, which is a huge event in Northern California. Tens of thousands of people, like thousands of amazing cars, and the police there do a really good job of keeping control. But the cops there are very no nonsense. Like they are like, they've
Mm.
got this like, ice in their veins kind of look. But a few years ago, I was there, and actor Eric Estrada from Chips was there, and all of these cops, particularly like Latino cops, were like so excited going to be like, "You're the reason why I became a police officer." And one of the things people don't realize in the '80s, a lot of them said like there were not there were very few Latino characters, but wasn't he wasn't just a Latino character, he was the cool guy. Like Eris Estrada was great in that show. And at first, like the other guy who no one remembers who that guy was. I mean, no offense to him, but people just don't. Like he kind of supposed to be the lead, and Eric Estrada was supposed to be the kind of the sidekick, but pretty soon it reversed, and Eric Estrada was the lead. He was the handsome guy, he was the cool guy. And so for my creation of this, I'm like, I really felt it was important. If this was going to represent Los Angeles, I needed a Latino or Latina lead. And that's really where Esmeralda came from. Um, and hoping that I can inspire like a next generation of Latinos to be like, oh yeah, that was cool. I feel represented in this. Because Latinos are such an important part of LA. They're kind of like, they're not just an important part of it, they are LA. I mean, the city is Los Angeles. But also speaking of other elements of like, nostalgia and pop culture is like, those guys from who are doing Adult Swim and Venture Brothers. I mean, they were really familiar with Johnny Quest, and I loved that show. I thought it was like so cool but campy at the same time. And then trying to think, like other stuff that was just like I really enjoyed. Like I love the Dungeon and Dragons cartoon. I've been thinking about that lately. I was talking about how I love the Ewoks cartoon. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
which as a Star Wars guy, I was like, I mean, it's also like I could talk about Star Wars being nostalgic, but Star Wars is still so present with us.
Sure.
But the Ewoks cartoon is that's not really, most people don't seem to know it. I don't see references to it. I don't even think it's on. Is it on Disney
I
Plus?
don't think you can stream it. I don't think so. I
I
think
don't
it's
think.
only on physical media, like if you can find it type thing.
Yeah, the Ewoks cartoon. So if anyone knows, where I can find that, and hopefully it holds up.
The theme song I don't know about, but maybe the theme song is very out there.
I don't remember the theme song.
Okay, okay.
I do remember enjoying it though. And I also,
Okay.
as a Star Wars fan, I was like, as a kid, I was like, yeah, yeah, give me that Star Wars. Okay, I can't get lightsabers. I'll take Ewoks.
Yeah, right? I mean, who doesn't love an Ewok? I think both of you, what you touched on, obviously, there's some generational similarities between all of us, but I do feel like there was from the media that was coming from the 80s, and I'm like a 90s guy, like I was raised in the 90s, but I was born in the early 80s. I do feel like there's this sense of like people didn't really have a good sense on technology yet. So like a lot of the visions for like the future in the 80s was very like just out there and kooky, and the 80s were out there and kooky too. So I really feel like I feel what you're trying to say, because I do feel like there's a certain sense from that whole era and time. There's just such a diverse, like movies just all looked different, right? Not like I feel like now where there's a lot of cookie cutter, and there's a lot of, you know, similar things that studios do, and people were just taking
Yeah.
risks and like being creative and
Yeah.
being out there. I'm a huge Jim Henson fan, so I feel like Jim Henson was just like
Oh yeah.
exploding everywhere and like being so creative. So I feel like there's that creativity that I feel like is so, nostalgic for me.
I don't want to give too much away about volume two, but are you familiar with the movie Flight of the Navigator?
Oh yeah, that's huge for my childhood. Oh my goodness, yes.
Love that movie. So I don't want to give anything away or tip my hand in anything, but I was like, MK or talk about stuff. I'm like, go watch that movie.
Okay, okay. Hey, that's a great segue because I literally was about to ask, like, what do you see the future for super science? Like, where do you see the story going? What are some of your dreams and goals?
So volume two is pretty much written. MK is illustrating it now. There's gonna be a few little things I'm gonna probably change in the final script after it's illustrated. Like I'll just see the way that he kind of drew things and change a few words or delete a few sentences. And then I'm also in the process of sort of writing, outlining volume three. There's a lot of like I'll kind of write stuff and then or I'll outline and then write stuff and then go back and re-outline. Um, it's a very messy process, and also because there's so many things to tie up, there's a lot of kind of having to. I'm doing more rewrites on this one than I had in the previous ones. Um, and then we're going to have like all three are going to have an ending. So if you pick up volume one, you'll go through volume two, you'll get to volume three, you'll have an ending. Um, I uh, I have a couple spin-off ideas, um, which I'm also kind of developing at the same time. Just trying to, like part of me is like, do I want to be working in super science till I'm 60? And part of me is like, yeah,
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. But
Em-
there's definitely going to be so volume one, two, and three,
Okay.
the real ending. And once you get through that, if you're like, okay, that was enough, you'll be like, that's an ending. And if you're like, I want more, I'm going to be in front of my MacBook, cursing at the technology and just trying to get more stuff out there.
Sounds good. I know MK, you probably can't say much more, but in terms of visually
Yeah.
speaking, like what excites
Mhm.
you about the future of super science?
I would love to see all of our characters as action figures. There are
Oh.
so many of them, and they look really, really funny. And once we did while we were working on Super Science Volume 1, we did a sketchbook for Super Science, and Nick has the book now. I spent months on them because seeing them in different positions and different environments, and just like Nick said, uh, when he mentioned that maybe we might go back to see the past years of those characters. So with that influence, I drew Bert Montague as a kid with his grandfather. And when you keep thinking about all those characters and the possibilities, you see that this is actually a universe and a world into itself. And yeah, I would love to see them. And also as a reader, I would love to see and read the backstories of some of the
Mm.
characters and some of the individual characters because they're all really rich characters. And like I said, they're not driven with their powers, but they're driven uh, with their personalities. And yeah, there will be a lot of fun.
I love it. So, and I'm also dreaming up. I mean, the lab does a great job with their special editions. Like the special edition of this volume one is in a gorgeous slipcase, and there's like foiling, and it's just really nice. There's like a bookmark. But I'm already envisioning like the omnibus with like you said, I'm a huge sketchbook person. I would buy all the Disney making of art books when I was like growing
Right.
up because I just want to dig into the behind the scenes stuff. So I
Mhm.
am a huge voter of a yes for adding sketch art, behind the scenes art, concept art.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
love that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Think and we
there's a lot of
go
good
ahead.
stuff there. And what's fun is like there's even so for MK's first um, character drawing of Gabe. He's got this kind of wacky machine hooked up to his head, and it's such a great visual. And then I was like, and it's been on my bulletin board now for years. And for volume 3, I'm like, okay, now I've decided what that thing is. And then there was uh it's uh what's it called? And then, for volume 2, we have this character, Dr. Kleinmacher, who you saw there, and I don't want to give it away, but MK drew this kind of funny thing of Kleinmacher and Jack, and I had this like whole kind of ending, and then I was like came up with this idea, and I was kind of started working backwards and working forwards again, and then I'm like, oh, that's what I should do. So, which you're gonna have to wait until volume 2 comes out. But there's a lot of MK's like character stuff that was kind of my inspiration on stuff. Like I have ideas, and then I see what MK's drawing, and I'm like, ooh, okay, let's see where this goes.
But instead, I'm gonna do this. Yeah. That's awesome. MK, I do have another question for you. Like, are you a traditional like paper pencil guy? Or do a mixture of digital? Like, how do you work?
I'm actually a traditional guy, but recently I started using tablet too,
Mm.
because you end up having lots of pages, and it's you're being always disorganized with those pages.
Okay.
So
Fair.
tablet in a way helped me a lot, because it's technology is so great now that it's almost feels like you're working on a actual paper, because you can get those covers that you can put on over the tablet, and when your hand touches the screen, it feels like paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent like almost 15 hours a day at my desk. But after the tablet, I can take the tablet and go to a coffee shop right next to
Ah.
my place, and not worry about where the light is coming from. Because back in the day, I'm a right-handed guy, and when I go to a coffee shop to draw, I always look for a right place to sit so I can get the light from my left. And then, in the middle of the drawing, you realize that, oh, you didn't get your eraser with you. And tablet, the greatest thing is like a great furniture, a small studio. You have your ruler, you have your pencils, and the light is always coming from the right place. Then wherever you sit down, you can work. So I'm using tablets too, but it's always much more fun to work on a paper with actual pen and ink. And I do a lot of gallery shows,
Mm.
and with those gallery shows, of course, I do a traditional work. Sometimes I use acrylic paints with acrylic pens on a canvas, but mostly I work on a paper. So it kind of takes, my love to working on traditional ways. It satisfies me, because working on a tablet for a ongoing comic book, it's much more professional and more organized. You find yourself.
Sure, sure. Well, I know you mentioned this earlier, Nick, in one of your answers to a previous question, but I'm also a huge music person. Like anything arts, like growing up, I was attracted to, right? Like visual, music arts. And so I'm really curious, like now that you said that you were listening to music, like what were kind of the songs that were on your playlist when you were creating Super Science? And like what were kind of those inspirations that you were drawing from, like musically?
So the first one is super literal. Like, I needed this event to happen that creates all the super scientists. And at first I was like thinking like, oh, what if it's like an alien spaceship or something like that? And then like it requires too much story. So I was like, it has to be something vague. And then uh Prince comes on my radio, and it's like he's like, the sky was all amethyst. I was like, oh yeah. Or so it's like, the sky was purple, and then there's the whole song Amethyst, and they talk about that. So I was like literally, I think those two songs came on not right after each other, but like close to right after. I'm like, what if the sky just turns purple and all of a sudden people can just do this crazy stuff? So that was kind of where that was. I also for a film that I did, Robbie Krieger of The Doors did a few songs. I got to meet him, which is so freaking cool. So Doors really creates kind of an LA vibe. Like if you were in LA, like when you're just like driving down Sunset and like LA Woman's on, you're like, oh yeah, that feels like The Doors. So those were really big ones. And then there's a lot of like 80s stuff, like Thomas Dolby, who did, She Blinded Me with Science, which is, but he also did the song, Europa and the Pirate Twins. That's why I created the Pirate Twins, like as like,
Mm-hmm.
but like kind of like, but She Blinded Me with Science, that kind of weirdness. And then Oingo Boingo, particularly with, weird science, like stuff like that was a lot of like that kind of very kind of faux techie 80s stuff, a lot of like early Duran Duran that has this weird, like
Right.
campy, sexy science sci-fi vibe to them.
I love that you said that because
Yeah.
like that hit the nail on the head for me. When you said Duran Duran, I was like, yes. Like I'm gonna go read it again with Duran Duran in the background. Yeah, that really hit it. And
Yeah.
also like I can foresee people like I concept album from like based off of this. I can see like this title like inspiring musicians to like write original music. I do feel like it's so like it just feels musical. Like a lot of what this title does, you can like sense that there's really a sense of like place and like you said, LA. And that to me is such associated with like sounds and music. So that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, LA, used to have one of the best music scenes in the world, and it's kind of not so much anymore. But also, like when I first moved out here, which was 20 years ago, I used to go see bands at Key Club, Viper Room all the time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because there was a lot of very 80s kind of bands, but also like some grunge bands
Yeah.
and some guys who were just trying like really weird stuff. And you talk to them, it's like, oh yeah, I was in this famous band for a while, and this is my kind of experimental band. You're like, whoa.
What? Yeah. I know because I was also getting kind of like punk rock vibes a little bit, but it's almost not. It's such a mixture, like such an amalgamation of like visual styles and like, yeah, it just hits on so many different levels, and I think it's really fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was like, and like Motley Crue is a band I really like, but Motley Crue is a great band if you re-listen to them as a punk band. Like
Sure.
forget about the glam rock image. If you listen to Motley Crue, particularly early Motley Crue as a punk band, you're like, this is a great punk band. And
Yeah.
Motley Crue is so LA. It's basically like the LA punk sound. Just like ignore like, the makeup and stockings. It's an LA punk band.
Yeah, and the big hair,
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
How about you, MK? Any music like floating in the background as you're working on this title, or inspired by any
yeah.
music?
Yeah. I'm in 1991, with some friends, we started Turkey's first rock and roll magazine.
Oh,
Uh, and it's kind of a cult magazine now that people go back to and buy all the issues. And I have a really funny memory about those days that one day we were doing the magazine. It was a weekly magazine. It was a weekly music magazine because we were getting the news from other magazines from the States and putting them on the magazine. So it was like a very underground setup. So, but it was a nationwide magazine, and we were selling like 15,000 copies a week.
oh
And,
wow.
and at the time, all those great bands started coming to Istanbul, like from Guns N' Roses to Metallica, all of them. So anyway, we were doing the magazine. It was the early 90s, and there was a half a page that a writer couldn't finish his piece, and we have to fill that page. And I'm doing a lot of drawings for the magazine. My main thing was to do uh, illustrations of the bands and the musicians, and also do some translations if there was a need. So one of my friends told me that we have a half a page that we have to finish, we have to do something, and he asked me that if I can do a half a page a short story. I said I'm so tired because we haven't slept for like 2 days, so I cannot draw anything. He said, "Can you translate something from these magazines?" I said, "No, I can't do it." And he's walking around, and then he was looking at a picture of the band Poison. and he said, "I think this band is going to break up, and we should make a story that Poison is breaking up." I said, "But we don't have any evidence that they're going to break up." He said, "Look at the lead singer and the lead guitarist, that they're standing really far away from each other." So I said that, "So this is your evidence that they're going to break up?" He said, "Yeah, probably, because they're childhood friends." And I said, "This is bullshit. This would never happen." Anyway, we argued and we slammed the doors, went to the different rooms, and he put the picture, and underneath it he put the headline. He said, Poison is breaking up." Because we were the only weekly rock magazine in the world, we happened to give the news to the world that that week Poison broke up. And we broke the news without knowing it. So yeah, I have this relationship with the music, but I feel like there's always this funny thing about music that Jimi Hendrix says, "Excuse me when I kiss the sky," and some people hear it as, "Excuse me when I kiss this guy." Or
Yeah.
there's a bad moon on the rise, and people argued for a while that there's a bathroom on the right.
Yes.
So I feel like our characters are on the side that mishear
Misheard the lyrics. I love
misheard the
that.
lyrics.
That
Yeah.
is so funny. And so you guys, so you basically predicted Poison's downfall. Like you guys
Yeah,
just like,
yeah. I
that
didn't.
is
I
so
didn't.
funny.
My friend, the other
Your
guy,
friend, your friend.
he predicted, and I never thought that anything like that would come out of this story. But yeah.
That is so funny. Don't get on his bad side. He might predict your future next.
Ah, yeah, it's funny about the misheard lyrics. So for actually, I think it's for I can't remember. Geez, volume three. Yeah, it's volume three. Bauhaus has the song Bela Lugosi's Dead. So I'm
Yeah.
the MK create Bela Lugosi's Fred, so it just looks like Fred Flintstone's Dracula.
That's awesome. That's so
And it's like,
funny.
what's this guy's deal? Like, he just looks like Fred Flintstone as Dracula. I was like, oh,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, every episode I basically recap. I read a ton of books. I consume a lot of media. I play tabletop games. Like I watch shows, and I like to recap those on the show and share them with my audience. I would love for each of you to just share maybe what are some books that you're reading right now. They can be comic books, obviously, like I said, that counts. Audiobooks, or what are some shows that you're just loving, or some other media that you're loving at the moment. Nick, why don't you start?
well, I just finished reading all of Shogun, which was pretty amazing.
Okay.
It's the I watched the original miniseries from the 80s forever ago, and I always thought it was cool. And then I watched the new series, which was beautiful. I mean, it was just a masterpiece, deserved every award it got. So I read the book, and it's like two volumes are this thick. And it's wonderful. It's really worth it. It's also an interesting thing because right before that, I read the James Bond book, You Only Live Twice, which was also set in Japan. And I almost feel like James Clavell probably read You Only Live Twice and said, okay, let me make this like a really good book. I also just finished watching Invincible season three, which some of the physics in that show is starting to bother me, but overall, I really liked it. And I just finished watching the last season of Umbrella Academy.
Okay, nice.
It felt like it was kind of ready to wrap up. But I really like the characters. Season two of Umbrella Academy is a tour de force. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But one and three are also really good, and four is like, all right, fine, wrapped it up pretty well.
Okay, okay, fair
Hmm.
enough.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very excited that Wednesday's second season is around.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I also went back to the first season again and rewatched it. And like Nick said, I loved Shogun too. And I remember as a kid when the original one was airing on TV. So it was on every Monday. And now that with this new look, it's really an amazing show. And also, I'm reading Heat 2, the novel, Michael Mann's novel, and exactly waiting for Heat 2 to come out as a movie or as a TV show, because there are lots of talks going on that it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. So I was very excited that when they announced the actors who's going to be replaced Val Kilmer, and who's going to be the Robert De Niro's character. And I'm really curious to see John Voight's character to come out. I think they probably based him on Eddie Bunker. I'm guessing because visually he was very much similar. So yeah, excitedly, I'm waiting for Heat 2 to come out as a movie or as a TV show, and I'm really enjoying the novel, and I really suggest everyone to take a look at it.
Well, that's awesome. I'm going to add Heat and Heat 2 and Shogun to my list because I've heard good things about all of those in the past. So you guys bumped those up for me.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for the recommendations.
It's a big commitment, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's definitely worth it.
I've heard amazing things about it. Yeah. Well, before we go officially, as you've probably made some new friends out there from this episode, just being able to talk to you and get to know you both, where can people who want to engage with you check out your stuff online, engage with you online? MK, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram, only on Instagram, and they can find me as MK Perker. And yeah,
Perfect.
And then I'm on Instagram. So it's N_Alessandro_K. I'm also on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it now. I'm not that active. I'm mostly just reposting like crazy Star Wars themes. But so Instagram is probably the best way to do it.
Perfect. And Super Science from the Lab Press is out now. I will link both of your guys' social profiles in the show notes of this episode
thank you.
and link where you can find it online. You can also find it at your local comic book store. So if you don't see it there, definitely request it. Guys, I cannot thank you enough for being here. I had a great time. Thank you so much for carving out some time to talk on this episode.
No, thanks for
Thank you,
having us. This
Jason.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you again to Nick and MK for spending some time and chatting with me all about their book, Super Science. It's a crazy good time. I highly recommend it. The link to where you can purchase it is in the show notes of this episode. One last thing I want to mention before I go is that I recently opened up a store where I'm selling t-shirts, stickers, hats, buttons, mugs, and I have a couple designs, one of them being the I Have Friends Everywhere quote from Andor, and some the list of names design that's been popular lately from the High Republic. So if you want to grab something like a sticker for your water bottle or a shirt to wear, you can visit thisdadreads.printify.me. I will have the link in the show notes of this episode, and it's also on my link tree on my social media channels. So thank you to everyone who's purchased something so far. It really seems like everyone's loving the designs and the quality of the product, so I'm so glad to hear that. If you do end up purchasing something, I want to know, so please either tag me on a post or DM me and let me know. I'm hoping to have a couple more designs up on the site soon, so definitely keep an eye out for that. That's a wrap on this month's episode. This Dad is out.